What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Long Distance Friends. Today, I have on an amazing guest. I have on my wonderful sister-in-law, Megan Koistinen. Megan is a registered dietitian, and I get to ask her all about eating more balanced meals and living guilt-free during the holidays, during Thanksgiving and Christmas, and generally ways that you can make your meals more balanced and have a better relationship with food. So, Megan, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you. I'm really excited. I love talking about food, and I'm excited to spend the next however long talking about food.
I did not prepare you for this, but I'm going to tell a story about you, which I think really just wraps up the kind of
Okay.
person that I think you are. So, the very
Love it.
not the very first time I met you, because I think the first time we met was at the beach, but the second time I met you, I think you came over to our family's house when you were dating my brother, and you had gotten word on the street. A little birdie told you that I was that I declared to the world that I was going to go gluten free, and I had no business going gluten free because I have no gluten allergy. Okay. And so, but in my little college mind, I was like, this is the way to fitness is I'm going to go gluten free for my New Year's resolution. And you show up at our house with gluten free cookies. And I will never, that is just something, a story about you that grows sweeter with time because now that I know you so much more, I'm like, she fully believed that I did not need those gluten-free cookies. And she made them from hand and brought them to me and supported me and gave me gluten-free cookies. And so I just thought that that was so sweet and just really captures who you are as a person.
Thanks. I think though that it really captures like dietitians as a whole. Like even though maybe I knew that you didn't really need to cut out gluten, like I'm here to support your goals and then build that rapport, right? And then we can have that conversation about gluten. And it's just like a little step in. Here's your little gluten-free cookies, but how about maybe also some gluten and that balance? And here we are today.
It all started with the gluten-free cookies. I love it.
Yes.
So tell us more about your journey to becoming a registered dietitian. Why did you choose to become one? What originally piqued your interest and what led you down that road?
So I always joke that I just love talking about food and I found a job that I could talk about food all day long. And I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, that is kind of why I became a dietitian. But I always knew that I wanted to be a part of the medical field. At one point, I wanted to be a doctor. Good thing I didn't become a doctor. I love being a dietitian. But um, in high school, I had elective health classes and like not just a health class, but like an anatomy class. And then I had this other class to where it was like geared towards people that wanted to be in the medical profession. And one of the assignments one day was like to research whatever you wanted to be when you grow up, right? And so I was like, I don't really know. So I started like looking around and I found a nutritionist and I was like, okay, like cool, I'll do that. And so I like did the report on it. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And then the next year we got to shadow in a hospital. They took a bunch of high school students into the hospital and I said that I wanted to shadow a nutritionist. Turns out I was wrong. I wanted to shadow a dietitian. Um, and so they took me to the kitchen, which is crazy. And then people in the kitchen were like, no, this is not what you're looking for. They matched me with the dietitian who then took me into the ICU, like first time in a hospital, first time I've ever met a dietitian. Let's go right to the ICU. Like, holy moly. And then she starts doing like tube feed calculations and stuff. And I was like, this is not what I wanted. Like, this is not what I thought a dietitian did. Like, what is going on? And she has like this booklet of formulas. And I was so lost. I hated math. I was like, if I have to do calculations all day long, there's no way I'm going to be a dietitian. But for whatever reason, I never second guessed it, only in that moment, I guess. And ever since then, wanted to be a dietitian. Fast forward to college, started, taking all my nutrition classes in undergrad, did all of that. And then after undergrad, then you have to do an internship to become a dietitian. And in my internship, in all internships, you rotate through a lot of different practices. And full circle, I fell in love with tube feeds. Like, that's all I wanted to do. I wanted to be in the ICU. I loved it. Like, that's where I really thought that, okay, here's where I'm going to make an impact. I can actually save lives. This is where nutrition really matters. I also did a pediatric rotation, which was so fun. And to see the impact there was amazing. And it really stuck. And I have done, I feel like, every job as a dietitian except for the public health space. I've never done that, but like I've been inpatient, I've been outpatient, I've been in adult hospitals, I've been in pediatric hospitals, I've been in military hospitals, and it's been such a fun journey that I've dabbled in almost everything. I've seen almost every condition. I've seen trauma to health conditions to strokes to tube feeds and cystic fibrosis, and it's just to be able to dabble in all of that and to heal people with food. It's so fun.
That is really cool. And what a great experience where you got to get such like a hands-on look right off the bat. So what are some misconceptions about registered dietitians? Or I guess for starters, like baseline, what's the difference between a nutritionist and a registered dietitian?
So funny you ask, because some dietitians will get like really up in arms, and I used to too. I'm like, no, don't ever call me a nutritionist. And now I'm like, if you're seeking help for health and nutrition, like that's great. That's a win. But essentially, registered dietitians are the ones that go through all of the training and the internship. In order to be a dietitian, you have to do the internship, and it's 1,200 hours. It's all credentialed and everything. Now you actually have to have a master's. When I went through it, you didn't have to have a master's. So like there's that aspect of it. And then after the internship, then you're eligible to take the nationally recognized exam to become a registered dietitian. So like that's the nationwide credential is an RD. And then in order to actually practice, you have to be licensed. And so that's statewide. Whereas a nutritionist, not to knock nutritionists, but they don't have that kind of training. So anybody can become a nutrition. Anybody can call themselves a nutritionist. Most nutritionists, though, will have they'll take some kind of certification exam or some kind of class or something, but it's a lot less information, a lot less scaled down. And the biggest difference is that because we are licensed, we can practice what we call medical nutrition therapy, meaning that we can actually help treat diseases. So a nutritionist, even though they sometimes do dabble in that, technically is not legal to. Like, you have to be a licensed medical professional to be able to practice that medical nutrition therapy and actually treat medical conditions and diseases.
Got it. So it'd kind of be like a fitness trainer or a personal trainer trying to do physical therapy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like, there's a lot more going on here than just
exactly.
how to properly squat, yeah.
Exactly. Which is great. Like, you should know how to do these things, but also, yeah, definitely need to be licensed in order to have that whole education and the experience that goes along with it.
Got it. So with your clients that you're seeing daily, what does that look like? What kind of life stage are they in? How old are they? Is it mostly men, women? Like, what are they coming to you for mostly at this time?
So right now, what I do, I practice at home. And so like, this is where I see patients every day, but I work for a virtual GI health company. So I specialize in gastroenterology, which is really fun. So my patients are wide range. We only see adults, so 18 and up, but anywhere from 18. I think my oldest patient's like 76 or something. So wide range. male, female, I mean, everything in between. And it's all GI, of course. So, and that could be anywhere from just constipation, diarrhea to irritable bowel disease, IBS, diverticulitis. So we see a lot of different things there. So I'm very specialized.
So, when a patient wants to see a registered dietitian, what does that process look like? What can people expect?
So when you come to see me, like me at my company, like I will start to kind of go through just the basics of things of like what you're eating now. Well, number one, like what brought you to see a dietitian, but also trying to identify your goals, like what are you working towards? So a lot of my patients, they're working towards GI health and to control their GI symptoms. But even if I'm not seeing you in a GI space, like as a dietitian, I'm still going to ask you, what are your goals? Are you looking for weight loss? Are you looking for blood sugar control? Are we looking at labs and trying to control things there? Do you have any deficiencies? So I'm going through this whole assessment. And then I'll start to ask more about like what you're eating now, trying to get a better understanding of what your daily life looks like. Are you eating 3 meals a day? Do you skip meals? A lot of my patients skip meals to avoid GI symptoms, which is huge. Like I need to understand all of that. And then we talk through like what your barriers might be. You know, are you a working mom that has 3 kids in after school activities? And because all of that's going to inform how I'm going to treat you or what interventions we work through, right? If you're a working mom and all of your kids are in after school activities, I'm not going to tell you to eat a healthy, balanced meal every single day or to cook at home every single day. Like we're going to work through that. We're going to work to see, you know, if you're eating out at fast food restaurants, okay, what are some healthier options you can choose? Where's that balance that we can find? If you're eating at restaurants, okay, well, here are some things that we can pick and choose. What are your favorite foods? A lot of my patients, I do work to identify those triggers because they are avoiding so many foods to help manage their GI symptoms. Like, okay, well, tell me more about that. A lot of times I'll also dig into what other kind of restrictions they have. Like, are you not going out to eat with friends because you're scared that, you know, you're gonna have GI symptoms? Or do you have other fears around foods because you have high blood sugars? Or you know, what's going on that's guiding your decisions around food, and really working to understand that the first time I meet with somebody so that we can tailor those goals specifically to you. That's really my whole approach, is just how can I tailor the goals to you to not only like make it fit your lifestyle, but so it's doable and it fits you and it's going to actually help you to achieve your goals. So many times patients are given handouts and things from their doctor because they're, you know, a lot of times their doctors don't know that I can refer you to a dietitian. But then they're given these handouts and then they're kind of like left on their own to read the handout, read Google, look on Instagram, like whatever the case may be. And then they get really
ChatGPT.
lost. ChatGPT. Yes. Yeah. Which honestly, I use ChatGPT too.
Same.
It can be really helpful. Like, especially when it comes to meal planning, when people ask me like, oh, can you help me with a meal plan? Sure. And then I go over to ChatGPT. Like, sometimes I'll tell patients like, you can do that too. You just have to be really specific about it. And of course, like I set them up with all the tools and everything to go along with that. But
perfect. You're living in the future. I love it. That's awesome. Yeah, you're like ahead of the curve with the AI.
I try. It's a time saver.
Oh, yeah. Time saver, lifesaver, all of the things. Even using it, this is such a squirrel moment, but using it to be like, okay, I need at least, you know, I want a high protein meal using these ingredients, using only meat that is on sale at this store. You know what I mean? Yes. Like, it's amazing.
Well, no, but you bring up a really good point, because a lot of times with patients, especially my patients, but anybody in general, if you have diabetes or high cholesterol and you're looking for that really specific thing, like it's going to take a dietitian a long time. Like we are the experts, but it's going to take a long time to kind of piece all of that together. And so ChatGPT and any kind of AI can be a really good tool for that. And, you know, that depends on your beliefs on AI and whatnot. But, you know,
it's a very scary thing.
Yes. For my patients though that have all of these trigger foods of like, hey, let's
Yeah.
make a high protein meal with that's
Yeah.
low fat and this and that, and I can't have onions or garlic or wheat, and like you start to pile all of these things on top of each other, that's when all of that overwhelm happens, especially if you've just left the doctor's office, you don't even know a dietitian exists. Where do I even start? Like there are still some good tools out there to act as that stepping stone.
That's awesome. Well, it's really cool hearing you talk about it and your approach too, because it really does bring to light how important your relationship with food is. It's relational, it's emotional, it like affects you in every area of your life multiple times a day. And if there's a roadblock there, like how sad that is when we don't get help for that, or when you don't get the right help for it. So it's really, really cool what you do. That's awesome. You also unlocked a bunch of questions for me when you were talking about restaurants and like fast food and stuff like that. Will you give me one example, because I don't want to overwhelm you, of someone who's like, okay, I'm going to Wendy's or I'm going to McDonald's. How can I order a better meal? And I'm sure that depends
So
on like their pain points, but
yeah, I mean, absolutely. It depends on like their restrictions, like what their goals are, things like that. I am a really big believer in that any fast food restaurant or like sit down restaurant, like there are options. It is going to be a little bit limiting at a fast food restaurant because they are catered to like selling you fast, hot, fatty, delicious food, right? Like it tastes good, okay? Like getting that
absolutely
out of
it
the way.
does.
Like it tastes good. I like the fast food. McDonald's, I will admit, is probably the one that I have never been able to find like really good alternatives. And so that's where we focus on like, okay, well, let's think about the balance of the rest of the day. You know, if you know that tonight is going to be really crunched because you have X, Y, and Z that you need to do, then maybe let's start to think about our entire day as a whole so we can think about that balance, right?
Yeah.
Or if you're like, oh, no, it's a really quick lunch. I packed my lunch, but somebody stole it at work or something weird, right? Or like, I just didn't get to eat lunch, or I had to take a client out, or whatever the case may be. I hear all kinds of things. So that's where we start to, I'm going to teach you how to fish rather than give you the fish, but that's where we start to think about those balanced meals in that moment too, of like, okay, where can I get vegetables? And at fast food restaurants, a lot of times salads are an option nowadays. Are they going to be good salads or a different story, you know? And do you like that? And that's where it starts to kind of feel a little bit limiting of like, well, I don't really like salads. Well, okay, if you don't like salads and the option is fast food, then like there's got to be a little bit of give and take here. But, you know, salads are an option. I never tell people to take off the bun and restrict that way. Like that's just crazy. I'm not going to order a hamburger and then take the bun off. That's half
Yeah.
the hamburger. Like
That's not a burger.
exactly. No, don't do that. Maybe just don't get the fries, or maybe think about the drink that you're getting and thinking about how all of these things are adding up together, and thinking about the satisfaction factor of like, well, what is it
Yes.
about the fast food that you're drawn to? Is it the convenience piece,
Yeah.
or is it because that burger is really delicious, or like, man, I really want those Chick-fil-A fries because they are so good. You know,
Yeah.
whatever the case may be, figuring out what that factor is that's drawing you in so that you can find that balance. Because if it's the burger, cool, but you could go without the fries and the Coke. Okay, then let's get a water instead, or maybe an unsweet tea or something. And there are probably people out there that are gonna be like, how dare you suggest an unsweet tea? But my point is, like, you can
Megan's in the
find
South.
these
Yeah.
others. Yeah, so I have a lot of patients that get up in arms about that one. But the point is, like, there are ways that you can pull out these areas to find that balance and still be able to enjoy food
Yes.
and not have to eat these bland veggies and like the chicken, rice, and broccoli
Yeah.
go to for, you know, people trying to lose weight. But
Yeah.
so that's usually the approach, is just like, well, where can we find that balance?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it really is so important for you to have that satiating, satisfactory factor, because that is one of the biggest points of food is like
Yes.
I want to enjoy my food. This is like what it's meant for. Also, it's meant to fuel my body, and like it's meant for community and like all these things. Like again, like food is such an all-inclusive thing. But if you take out that satisfactory, satiating factor and you just eat chicken and rice for months, like what a loss on your life. You know what I mean? And also unrealistic, and you're
Yes.
never going to stick to it. You will never stick to it. And when you don't stick to it and you bounce back, it's going to be even worse. So,
Yes. I have that conversation probably on a daily basis. And because I get the question all the time of like, well, what happens at the end of the day when I just want a bunch of sweets? Like, cool, let's talk about it, because what is probably happening is that you weren't feeling satisfied earlier in the day because you have restricted so much for so long, and that you never stopped. It sounds very judgmental of me. This is something that we like talk through, and I ask patients like, okay, after breakfast, lunch, and dinner, did you feel satisfied, or did you just eat the foods that you thought that you were supposed to eat? Or like, let's say you are satisfied after every meal and you still want a sweet, like that, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, of course, our body wants that salty sweet balance. And that's where we start to play around with the volume of things. Maybe a few Hershey Kisses because you just wanted the taste of it. Maybe you truly are hungry. And that's where you start to talk about those hunger and fullness cues and relearning that. And, there's so many different ways that you can go about it. But that satisfaction factor is probably the biggest thing for any patient, is just always asking yourself, am I truly satisfied with my meal? And that can be a real game changer.
Yeah, that is so awesome. One of the things, this is kind of a random thought, but I'm going to tie it back in. One of the things that I think about a lot is, as an American, there are so many places that I can live. Like, I can live in Maine, I can live in Florida, I can live in California, I can live in Arizona, I can live in Washington. And as a military spouse, you get to see a lot of the country a lot of times because you're moving a lot. But I think it's the same way with food. Like, you have so many options. You have this whole world to explore that's satisfying and sweet and crunchy and salty and like all of the flavors and things. And like, you get to decide how to mix and match that into your life in a way that is healthy and satiating and beneficial and fueling your body, and like what a joy that is. And I think that gets lost in diet culture because there's just so much emphasis on restriction and solely how is this going to make my body look, and there's just so much loss there.
So much loss of joy, because you bring up a good point of like, us as humans, we gather around food, and to take that away is like taking this essential part of human life and human interaction away. And you get so set on these rules that you have to follow that you start to restrict things too much and cut out essential nutrients. Or let's say you restrict something and you're being really successful, and so you're like, okay, yeah, I'm doing really good. But then you fail because you eat something that you really wanted and it actually does bring you joy, but you can't fully enjoy it because you've broken this rule for yourself. And then you feel like a failure, and then it just feeds into that cycle, which is really unfortunate, but also why I love being a dietitian. And when somebody comes in to me and they tell me these things, and I'm like, all right, we've got some work to do.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. Like, here are all of the things that we can still do and still achieve your goals and have you eating a wide variety of food. Like, there's nothing better. And then when they come back and they're like, I'm eating this food and I'm still like controlling my blood sugars, or my cholesterol went down, or I'm not having GI issues, or whatever the case may be, like, that is the biggest win in
What a
life.
win.
If I can bring you joy with food again, dietitians are the best.
I love that. You're going to have people messaging you after this episode being like, how can I become a dietitian?
Yeah. It's not easy, but it's fun. Yes, I will answer. quick caveat, the internship was the worst year of my life.
Oh,
But
no.
the 12 years after said internship that I've been a dietitian have been the most phenomenal.
Yeah. Oh. Well, it's been a really cool experience. Looking back, like on our time together, and like having, you know, you being family and me being your family now, because we're around each other so much on the holidays and Thanksgiving and all these things. And Megan has seen me do the 75 hard challenge. Megan has seen me do all of these restrictive things where it's like, Megan, I'm coming to your house and I can't have this, or this. Um, and she has just seen me yo-yo diet, and she's seen it all. And so I, but you never like shamed me out of that. You never made me feel like what I was doing was wrong. I was just doing what I knew how to do, and unfortunately, which was yo-yo diet. But I have had the pleasure of seeing Megan truly enjoy food. One of the first memories I have, again, of Megan, she just ate this big fat juicy burger and she was loving it.
It's true. And I will be the first person. I mean, that's what brought me to being a dietitian, is because I love food. Like, you don't understand. I love to eat food. I love to talk about food. And it makes me so happy if I can help other people love food as much as I love food. Like, let's go. Food. All food.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So anyways, if I've never thanked you for that, thank you for being that steady, just wonderful presence throughout all of my yo-yo dieting. I think where this started to turn around for me was, my oldest is 3 now, but I realized that I did not want to pass down my relationship with food to her, because I wanted her to see me freely enjoying and exploring and fueling my body. And I did not want her to see me calorie counting or restricting or anything like that. I just didn't feel good about that. And you recommended the book to me, Intuitive Eating. And wonderful. Reading chapters throughout that book really did help me start to piece together, oh, wow, like I can really change my relationship with food. So would you tell us, this might be a hard question, tell people listening, what is intuitive eating? And it sounds very like woo-woo, but it's really not. So can you break down intuitive eating for us?
Yeah, it does sound a little woo-woo. You're right. And I never thought about it that way. Because when it was first introduced to me, it was like intuitive eating, like I gotta like practice this and I have to like teach this. And then as I got into it, I was like, oh, well, no, like I think I'm already doing this. I'm just maybe calling it something different.
Yeah.
But essentially, what intuitive eating is, an evidence-based, non-diet approach to eating. And so it helps you to rebuild that healthy relationship with food and to trust your body again. And it's really helping to reconnect with those internal cues, like honoring your hunger and your fullness, that satisfaction factor, understanding what that feels like, and your emotional needs around food, and how our diet culture has become so heavy into emotions, and our emotions are really driving all of that. And so really at its core, we're just reconnecting with those signals that we are born with, right? If we watch how our kids eat, they're doing it, even though it may feel very frustrating to us, right? Like they'll eat like bottomless pits for a couple of days and then they'll eat 2 bites and be good for another 2 days. And you're like, why aren't you eating? I just need you to finish your plate. And then you have to step back and you're like, oh my gosh, even these little things like me making you finish your plate, I'm not letting you honor your hunger and fullness cues.
Yeah.
I'm falling into that same trap.
It's hard.
And so really trying to back off of that and really listen into your body, being one with your body, not treating foods as good or bad or even like healthy or unhealthy. Like every food has a purpose. Even the highly processed sugary ones have a purpose. It's just finding that balance of what our body is asking for so that we can honor it and then have that healthy relationship with food.
Yeah, that is I think the biggest hang up, if I had to guess, that people have with it is the whole there's no such thing as good food or bad food, because
Mm-hmm.
that is what you are taught your whole
Mm-hmm.
life is no, you can't have cake till you finish your broccoli. And so to undo all of that is like really hard, because there's certain foods that our whole life are put on a pedestal, and other foods that are therefore made less desirable because they're like your have to foods, and then you've got
Mm-hmm.
your other foods that are like you get to, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So having to untangle that and go back to the very basics of like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to strip down everything I know about food. Let me just look at, like, imagine you had like a buffet table of all the foods in the world, and your goal was to say, okay, my goal right now is to eat what is satiating to me and what's going to fuel my body. Like, what are you going to pick off the table? You know, that's kind of how I think about it. But would you have anything you would add or correct in that?
I would choose potatoes. Would like to add that. No, but it's really good. It's a good point that, yeah, if you have all of the foods available and you really do learn how to listen to your body will guide you. Your body's really great at that. And I think that's a really big hang up for people of like, I can't just, if I just listen to my body always wants chocolate cake. And like, of course it does. Like, let it have chocolate cake. Chocolate cake is good. But you know that if you have chocolate cake over and over and over again, eventually you're going to get sick of it. And
Oh,
eventually
yeah.
your body's going to say, like, oh no, I want some fresh food.
Yeah.
And that's the whole concept. And it takes a long time sometimes to relearn all of those hunger and fullness cues because we have been suppressing them for so long, or because we've been trying to follow this like good food, bad food rules. And so that it's really hard for people to like wrap their heads around it. But the more that you do it and the more that you listen and the more that you have all of those foods available so that you can have those options,
Mm.
it goes such a long way with that satisfaction factor of like, you know what? I am actually sick of this like unhealthy food and
Yeah.
I'm ready for these fresh vegetables or whatever it is. And then, oh my goodness, I can step back and say that I am satisfied and I gave my body what it was asking
Yeah.
for. Something else that comes to mind is like how often we should be eating, of like you should do intermittent fasting and you
Mm.
should eat every 2 to 3 hours and like
Another thing
all
I
of these
did.
things, which I mean, hey, to each their own. And I will say with that,
It,
I let patients do that too. Like you have to go on your own journey. So you can't, I mean, a part of that is learning your body and doing all of those things and learning that that's not going to work for me. So, I mean, that's all a part of it. But I get the question a lot of, well, what happens when I am hungry again in 2 to 3 hours? And then I have to pause and, tell patients like, then your metabolism is working like it should. Like you should get hungry again, like, and that's okay. And that's when you listen to your hunger and fullness cues and you feed your body and you take a step back and you say, okay, am I truly hungry? Because sometimes we do fall into, oh, I'm eating or I'm watching TV, so now I get a snack because that's what I always do. Or I'm bored and so I go eat some food because it's something to do, and so there are those things. So you
hmm
do have to like pause and say, okay, am I actually hungry? And if you are, then absolutely eat what looks good and what is going to be satisfying to you.
Mm. Yeah. I feel like that's a whole other like mental health topic of like, ooh, I had a good day. I'm going to get a treat. Ooh, I had a bad day. I'm going to get a treat. You know,
Yes.
there's
Yeah.
always a reason, right?
Oh, yeah. And it's so easy to reward with food too, which
hmm
that's also something that I not only do I have to break with myself, but like he
Yeah.
gets a good math score. Let's go out for ice cream. And I'm like, oh, okay. Next time I'm not going to say that. Because it
Yeah.
shouldn't be like food shouldn't be treated as a reward. Like you can have ice cream whenever you want, not just because you did good. So
Yeah,
it's
like there's a
all
difference
that's
between food being at celebrations and food being a part of celebrations and
yes.
community versus like a reward. Yeah, yeah, that's a tough
Yeah.
balance.
Yes. And that's where that intuitive eating comes in to break all of that, to break those cycles.
Yeah. Oh man, I have so many more questions for you. Okay. We're on a
Lay
roll
them on
here.
me. Yeah.
Okay. So another part of my food journey was a wait, when was this? Last year? I've lived so many lives since last year. I was about to say 3 years ago. Um, Another part of my food journey, I was pregnant with my youngest, and she is almost a year now. So I guess this was about a year ago. I was, quote unquote, diagnosed with gestational diabetes. And I immediately texted you because I was like, oh my God, what did I do wrong? Like, what is this? What does this mean? I just felt so much shame because you hear the word diabetes and you're like, what did I do? You know what I mean? And I was like, I was really honestly like a little embarrassed. I was like, I thought I was healthier than this, which you, of course, quickly talked me out of. And you're like, no, this is not your fault. This is your body reacting to your placenta, and there's nothing that you did. But it actually turned into a really cool journey for me because I, for the first time in my life, had to pay attention to blood sugar levels. And pro tip for anybody out there who is pregnant and has gestational diabetes, you can, if you have it in the budget, which I highly recommend if you're able to, moving around some money in the budget, you can get a continuous glucose monitor from Sam's Club. And it's $70 a month, and you don't have to prick your finger 4 times a day. You can just get the one that goes in your arm. It doesn't hurt, I promise. $70 a month, and you will not have to do the finger prick. You can request that your OB writes you a prescription for one so that you can take it to Sam's Club and go get one for $70. And it is amazing. And you can have it on your app and watch your blood sugar that way. No one ever talks about that, so I want to make sure I mention that. But anyways, so it was the first time in my life that I had to be aware of my blood sugar levels. Never in my life have I ever paid attention to that. Like, sure, like looking back, I've noticed, okay, after I eat Chick-fil-A, I'm like really tired, right? Like, like now I can look back and be like, oh, that was my blood sugar level crashing.
Yep.
but, but I just never paid attention to it. And so at 30 years old was the first time when I ever paid attention to that. And it was such a cool learning experience because I really did see firsthand I can have a cookie. I just have to make sure to balance that out with other foods. I can have these things I really enjoy. But I just learned the importance of balance throughout that journey. And so, what would you say to any women with gestational diabetes, A, and then B, walk us through why having balanced meals is so important?
Yeah. So, number one, definitely not your fault. Like, hormones are running rampant. Like, nothing in pregnancy is your fault ever. Like,
Yeah,
you get all the
true.
passes. Pregnancy is the worst. And I had an easy pregnancy and I still think it was the worst. So gestational diabetes is in a class on its own, partly because it happens during pregnancy, but like they don't fully understand, number one, diabetes in general and how it fully develops. And then in gestational diabetes, like it works different. So it's just like you can be the healthiest person on the planet and still develop gestational diabetes. It's tricky and there is shame with that. And that comes from the doctors and the healthcare system. And it gets me heated because it's not just gestational diabetes, it's type 2 diabetes. It's high cholesterol. You name it. If you can have it, if you can develop it, there is shame around it, which is so unfortunate. And it goes back to like not having preventative care. Not that gestational diabetes doesn't matter what you do, like it can still happen. But some of these other things, like nobody ever talks about it. And so it just kind of comes out of nowhere essentially for the patient in your own experience.
Mm.
So, that's a lot of the conversation that I have with patients is just like kind of talking them out of this shame and this fear and this guilt and the regret of the things that they didn't do right. So that we can be open to, okay, well, now that it is what it is, that's okay. Sometimes I will tell patients, sometimes it is good that you actually have a diagnosis, because when you get a diagnosis of type 2
Yeah.
diabetes, that helps insurance cover those continuous glucose
There
monitors.
you go.
And then we get to see the blood sugars in real time. Like, those are so helpful and very eye-opening to how
Yeah.
blood sugars are being controlled and what actually is affecting things, because I can talk until I'm blue in the face with a patient on balance and physical activity and how all of this affects things. But when you can actually see it in real time, I mean, that makes all the difference in the world. But for those that can't see that, having those balanced meals, it goes into that intuitive eating of that balance for that satiating factor, but to also make sure that we get all the nutrients that we need. So much of diet culture is geared around eliminating one thing or another, whether it's fats or carbs or whatever the case may be. Or if it's gestational diabetes and you're told to eliminate everything white or cut out all sugars or eliminate entire food groups. When you do that, you're eliminating vital nutrients. You're eliminating carbs or fats or proteins or fiber. That's so crucial. Or you're eliminating, the vitamins and minerals and stuff that baby needs to grow and that mom needs to be able to grow said baby and things like that. Then that gets me really frustrated of like, well, why, who told you this? So I can go have my own words with them. But then I have to like unteach all of that and kind of have that conversation of, if you cut out these entire food groups, you're missing out on these things. And we have to have these things for, if it's calcium so that mom doesn't lose bone mass because baby is taking it because you didn't eat enough calcium, because you're eliminating dairy, because they told you to eliminate everything white or all sugars, and all of these things, like it's all this chain effect. So what balance actually looks like is a little bit different for everyone. It kind of depends on what your goals are, what you're looking to achieve. Some people will use the macronutrients, the macro and micronutrients, and talk about getting fats, carbs, and proteins with every meal. I tend to use my plate as my approach. My plate is from the USDA. It actually replaced my food guide pyramid. So like when you were back in elementary school,
Yep.
and they had all those different food groups, well, they
I remember
changed
the
it
baguettes
to
at
my
the bottom.
Exactly. Which in my opinion, the baguettes should be a little higher choice.
I know, right? I was like, this ain't adding up.
Yeah. Well, and when we were looking at the pyramid, so like originally the pyramid was like broken up into like blocks, and then they changed it to like these columns, which was even more confusing. So they switched it and they went totally away from my food guide pyramid, and they went to my plate. So it's this like balanced meal that you can essentially achieve for every meal. And it breaks it down. You can look it up on the USDA website.
Fruits, grains, vegetables, proteins, and then a little dairy cup at the top.
I usually teach it a little bit different because I teach it more so not necessarily the grains, but like carbs in general. So you're getting a balance. So I kind of do a little bit of both of like the carbs and protein balance. So that way you're breaking it up into the different food groups. And then there's different my plates for different activity levels. If you're really sedentary, maybe you add in more veggies instead of having as much fats or proteins. Or if you're super active, maybe you have a lot of that carb category because you have to fuel your body and you have to replenish those carbs in your muscles. And, so there's different ways to go about it that way. But I like my plate because it is that nice representation of like what should my plate actually look like. So you can always have that in the back of your mind. So when you do go out to eat, because a lot of people ask me like, well, make a meal plan for me. If I make you a meal plan, I can do that.
Right.
But
Yeah.
then I'm giving you the fish. I'm not teaching you how to fish. Whereas like my plate is teaching you how to fish, right? So you go and you go to a friend's house, or like with the holidays coming up, right? You go to a holiday party, or you're going out to eat, and then you can ask yourself, okay, thinking about my plate, where do I get my fruits? Where do I get my veggies? Where do I get my greens? Where do I get my proteins? Can I get a side of dairy? And that may not be every single meal, right? Like for breakfast, we're not going to get vegetables, and that's okay. And then for dinner, probably not going to get fruits, and that's okay too. That's where that balance throughout the day comes in as well. Or like before, if you know that you're going to be out and about and you know that McDonald's is going to be your only option, cool, go for the McDonald's. Maybe you make some changes like at McDonald's, or maybe, you load up on the fruits and veggies earlier in the day to then kind of counteract. And so you're thinking about my plate for the entire day.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
you
it
can
makes sense.
certainly find that balance either way.
Okay. So, last question. Since we are going into the holidays, we're going into Thanksgiving, we're going into Christmas, there's going to be cakes and foods and casseroles and all of the like wonderful things. What would you like to leave with our listeners about when it comes to what they should be thinking about during the holidays, whether that is don't think about food at all, go have the time of your life, or is it meh, moderation? What do you have to say about all of that? Food in the holidays.
Yeah. So biggest is just like don't follow any rules. Enjoy that time as much as possible. And that is like there are asterisks there because like if you do have to monitor your blood sugar or if you do have GI symptoms and things like that, like there are, reasons why okay, you may have to pick and choose a little bit here and there, but like to take that joy out of food takes the joy out of the holidays. And knowing that we have, well, both Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, all of that, but that comes with family gatherings, friends gatherings, co-workers. Like there's just so many things happening day after day, it feels like. And that if you get in that trap of thinking like, I can't have this or that because if I do, then I am a failure or I'm going to gain weight or whatever the case may be, then it starts to take away that joy and you're so focused on not the holiday season, right? And it really brings me down when people get into that mindset and kind of fall into that pattern. And that this time of year is my favorite time to talk. Like really in the last 2 weeks, trying to set people up for Thanksgiving, it's my favorite time of year to work with patients because a lot of times they're not even thinking about it. And we're going to set their follow-up and I'm like, oh, do you want to check in before Thanksgiving? And we can like really set you up for that. And they're like, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. And then we get to have that conversation of, you can do this, this, and this to find the balance or to avoid the GI symptoms or whatever the case may be there. And then like, okay, we checked in right before Thanksgiving. Let's check in right before Christmas too. So we can work through all of those strategies to figure out how to bring in that joy. Thanksgiving, I think, is a little bit easier. Thanksgiving tends to be like 1 or 2 days. Like it's usually not so drawn out like Christmas. And so usually for Thanksgiving, I tell people enjoy all of the foods. Even if you're trying to control your blood sugar, eat all of the carbs. 1 day is not going to be detrimental for you. Or think about the balance. If you know that you are going to eat X, Y, and Z with your family later, that's fine. Then treat it like the fast food, right? Like you know that you're going to do this. So having that balance to set you up in the beginning of the day. And that doesn't mean like not eating so you can eat all of the things. I do have patients that do that. And I'm like, no, that wasn't what I meant. I meant like
That's worse.
but eat healthy things. Or eat something that is satisfying and satiating and that's going to set you up for a good, healthy, balanced later.
Yeah. In other words, don't restrict when you're gonna you're going into a meal like that. Fuel your body. give your
Yes,
body like lots of
exactly.
nutrients and goodness
Exactly.
before. Yeah. And that's
Exactly.
a switch.
'Cause-
That's a mind switch. Yeah.
yeah. And we know that the more that you restrict, the more that you're going to end up overeating later. And that's not just with the holidays, like that's any time. So, really trying to go in with the mindset of I'm going to enjoy this time with family, friends, loved ones, whatever that is. And I'm not going to worry about foods,
Top
which is a
priority.
lot, yes, a lot easier said than done. I always feel that way when I say that out loud of like I know that it's not just a simple like flipping the switch, but I promise like one day is not going to be detrimental for your overall health or your weight or whatever those goals are. But what could be detrimental is missing out on that time with family. I mean, I just, yeah. We all have those traditions too. And when you think about gathering and you think about those traditions, think about like missing out on that because you're so worried about the potatoes or the rolls or what, like, or the cookies or whatever it is. Like, food should just not have that much power over
Yeah.
us. And it does, unfortunately. Um, but yeah.
Yeah. You've lost the plot if you're thinking about how you can't have rolls and you're surrounded by all of your friends and family.
Yes,
Like,
exactly.
yeah, we've
Yeah.
lost the plot there a little bit. Yeah. We need to
Yes.
reprioritize some things.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, thank you, Megan. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Is there any other lasting thoughts? Anything you would like to share with our listeners?
So many thoughts, but just, I don't know, maybe finding a dietitian if you have more questions, reach out to me. I am more than happy to talk about food, but finding a dietitian in your area, thinking about looking at intuitive eating, it is a phenomenal book. It's a thick one, but it's
She thick.
phenomenal. Yeah. But really trying to focus on building that healthy relationship with food again.
Yeah, that's amazing. If someone is looking for a registered dietitian in their area, is that as easy as Googling registered dietitian near me? Are there certain credentials or things that people need to be looking for? Or like when you're messaging a registered dietitians, like what you should tell them? Walk people through that really quick.
Yeah, so you could Google just registered dietitians in your area. That could get tricky with the credentialing.
Okay.
Just always looking for that RD and LD. The LD is that they are licensed in whatever state that you are in. If you go to the Eat Right website, it's like eatright.org, and I can send you the website. There is a way that you can look up dietitians in your area through that website.
Okay. I'll link that in the show notes as well.
Yeah.
Eatright.org. Okay.
And eatright.org has a lot of other really great things on there too. But there is a way that you can look up dietitians. And then as you're talking with that dietitian, I would ask about insurance as well, because a lot of times paying out of pocket for a dietitian can be expensive. If you're a military spouse, like you can go on base. There are always dietitians on base that you can go see yourself as a spouse. Or you can look in your area. If you go on base, obviously that's going to be covered by TRICARE. And then if you're talking with a local dietitian, asking about insurance, what insurance they take, if they need some kind of referral from your doctor, that kind of thing. So you can help get that covered as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Megan. Thanks for coming
Thank
on the show
you.
today and sharing all of your expertise with us, and mostly for the reframing and the importance of our relationship with food and the freedom to just go into the holidays and enjoy being with family and to take that stress away. Love you so much, and we'll talk soon.
Bye. Thank you.